Sade Gaurav. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 3, chapter 29, text 36. We are going to begin with text 36 today. Etad bhagavato rupam brahmana paramatmanaha param pradhanam purusham devam karma vichestitam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, S.Bhagavatam Canto. This Purusha, whom the individual soul must approach, is the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Brahman and Paramatma. He is the transcendental chief personality, and his activities are all spiritual. So Lord Kapila Dev is explaining to Devahuti that the absolute truth is realized in three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Is non-dual, is the same. Truth means one. Absolute truth. God is one. There's not many gods. It's not that this one is also God, that one is also God, you are also God, I'm also God. No, God is only one. And we can never become God. We just have to realize who we are. And that is parts and parcels of God. So God, He's the chief personality, chief transcendental personality. His form is not material. He's not bound by Rajogun, Tamagun, and Sattvagun. And his activities, it's not that God doesn't do anything. And it's not that he's just sleeping or he doesn't do anything. No, he has activities. And his activities are spiritual. Just as the soul. We are the soul. Right now we are inside the material body. But when we go back home to the spiritual world, we have a spiritual form and spiritual activities. So God, His activities are always spiritual, whether He comes to the material world or whether He is in the spiritual world. His activities are always spiritual. Right now, because we are in this material body, our bodies have become our activities have become material, and that is material life. So we engage, we practice. We are practicing devotional service so that we can also come to the platform of spiritual life. So in order to distinguish the personality whom the individual soul must approach, it is described herein that this Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the chief amongst all living entities and is the ultimate form of the impersonal Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation. So the Katha Upanishad tells us, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kam. And there are so many eternals. We are all eternal. We are all souls. So all the Jivatmas are eternal. But among all these countless number of eternals, there is one eternal who's maintaining all other eternals. And that is the Supreme Lord. That is God. And the Brahman effulgence, the light, Brahman, is the light which is coming from his form. He has a spiritual form, a spiritual body. Body does not mean material. Body can be material and body can be spiritual. The elements, earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, all these are material. But a spiritual body is made up of spiritual elements. This is what we have to understand. So it's not that form is material. No. Form is not material. The original form is spiritual. That's the reason there is form in the material world. Because the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. For example, when we stand in front of the mirror, we see our reflection. Now, because we are there, that's why we can see our reflection in the mirror. If we were not there, there would be no reflection in the mirror. So similarly, because there is variety, there is form in the spiritual world, there is variety and form in the material world. So since God, he is the origin of the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation, he is described herewith as the chief personality. So, the intelligence is when we see light, oh, God is light. But where is this light coming from? Oh, it's coming from the body of God. It's coming from the form of God. Oh, Paramatma, who is the Paramatma? He is a feature of God. That is intelligence. We need to go further. We should not just stop at Brahman realization or Paramatma realization. We need to do further inquiry. And we will come to the person, Bhagwan. Bhagwan, he is the Supreme Lord. He is God. And not that you are Bhagwan, I'm Bhagwan, he is Bhagwan, she is Bhagwan, everyone is Bhagwan. No. Only Bhagwan is Bhagwan. Only God is God. We are all not God. That is the point we have to understand. So it is confirmed in the Katha-Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam. There are many eternal living entities, but he's the chief maintainer. We can see, whenever we are in danger, whenever we need something, we intuitively turn to God. We turn to a higher power. God, please save me. Or whatever, we may call it different names, universal energy, power, whatever. But we always turn to a higher power. It goes to show that there is someone higher than us, that we are not the controllers. That God is greater than us. That is the point. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita also, where Lord Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the origin of everything, including the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation. No one else makes such a bold statement as Krishna makes in Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the source of everything. I'm the origin of everything. Everything is emanating from me. The Brahman, the Paramatma, the Jivatmas, everything is coming from me. No one else says that. Why? Because no one else is the origin. Krishna is the origin, so he can say it. He's speaking the truth. He's simply narrating it. He's not boasting. When we get something and we boast, Krishna is not boasting. He's simply saying the truth. So his activities are transcendental as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's activities are not material. Not that, oh, Krishna, he was some yogi or some mystic or some king or some yadu or some cowherd boy. No, he's God. That's the reason it's so important for us to study the Canto 1 and Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam, to understand Krishna's position. When we understand Krishna's position, then we will be able to somewhat, little bit, be able to understand his personal pastimes of Vrindavan. So his activities are transcendental as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam. Krishna is saying it himself in chapter 4, transcendental knowledge, when he's giving Divya Gyan to Arjuna. In chapter 4, he's saying, Janma karma chame divyam. My appearance and activities are transcendental. So Krishna is not like a hocus pocus self-proclaimed guru. Nowadays you go on the internet, you open, everybody is saying, I'm a guru, I'm this. Everybody is speaking on Bhagavad Gita, but without Krishna. They're all making their own songs and just using the title Bhagavad Gita. But Krishna is not like that. He's not some hocus pocus trying to cheat us. Krishna does not want to cheat us. Krishna loves us. That's why he's in our heart as Paramatma. Otherwise, why will he sit in our heart as Paramatma? He loves us a lot. We are very, very important to Krishna. We are very dear to Krishna. Otherwise, why would he make the effort to become the Paramatma? Of course, it's not that he's sweating or he's, but still he's caring. That's why he's here as the Paramatma with us. So each of us is dear to Krishna, and he wants us to return back to him as quickly as possible to revive our relationship with Krishna. That's what we need to do. That is the aim of human life, to revive our relationship with God. So they are not to be considered material. The appearance, the activities and appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are transcendental. They are not to be considered material. Anyone who knows this fact, that the appearance, disappearance, and activities of the Lord are beyond material activities or material conception, is liberated. So we want liberation. Krishna is saying, just try to understand that my appearance, my disappearance, and my activities are transcendental, and you will get liberated. This is Krishna's guarantee. So that's what we should do. We should try to understand what Krishna is saying. Try to understand how his appearance, disappearance, and activities are transcendental. They're not under the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Yo veti tattvataha tyakpa deham punarjanma. Such a person, after quitting his body, does not come back again to this material world, but goes to the Supreme Person. So isn't it wonderful? Krishna is so kind, so compassionate. He's saying you just try to understand this and you will get liberation. Just try to understand that I am not material. I am my appearance, my disappearance, my activities are all spiritual. By understanding this, after you give up your material body, then you can come back home in the spiritual world, never to come back to this material world. That is liberation. That's liberation. Now, when we go to the spiritual world, it's not that we become Krishna or that we become Vishnu or we become God. No, God is God. When we go back to the spiritual world, we continue to remain as spirit souls. We have a spiritual form, a spiritual body, and we have spiritual activities, and we engage in that spiritual activities. And each of us has a loving relationship with God. You know, in this material world, we do so many activities because we have so many different relationships with our parents, with our children, colleagues, bosses, whoever, with society in general. Similarly, so these relationships are there. Why? Because there is original relationships in the spiritual world. This material world is just a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So there are relationships in the spiritual world. Each of us has an eternal relationship with Krishna, with God. And that is what we need to realize in this human form of life. And we don't need to come back to this material world again then. We can continue to live in the spiritual world, in a spiritual form. No need anymore this material body. So it is confirmed here, Purusha Purusham Vraje, the living entity goes to the Supreme Personality simply by understanding his transcendental nature and activities. So Krishna is saying, you don't need to do Gyan, Yagya, Tapa, charity, austerity, penances, difficult things. You don't have to undergo severe austerities. You don't have to undergo severe studies. You know, Gyan, logic, Nyaya, Sanskrit, grammar. Don't need to do anything. He's saying you just try to understand. Try to hear about me. Try to understand my transcendental nature, the transcendental nature of my appearance, disappearance, and activities, and you'll get liberation. So he's giving us this easy way to get out of this material world. Is that okay? To continue reading, Rupa Bhedas Padam Divyam Kala iti abhidhyate bhutana mahad adinam yato bhinna darsham vayam. The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestations is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, time I am, O Arjuna. And by this time I am the destroyer of all the worlds, because time deteriorates. Even a newborn baby, we say, how old is the baby? The baby is just born, 1 day old. A newborn baby we call 1 day old. Why? Time factor is already, the clock has started ticking. The expiry date it's already there. 1 day is taken out of the life. So who is this time? Time is the impersonal form of God. Time is also called as the most benevolent will of the Lord. Most benevolent will of the Lord. So when we don't know the Lord, then we get afraid of time in the form of death. We may say, why shall I surrender to God? I'm independent. So the choice is ours, but at one moment we will be forced to surrender when God appears in front of us as death. Because this body that we have is not permanent. We will be kicked out of this body at one time, one point of time. And that time is Krishna. That time we have to surrender to him. Everyone is afraid of the activities of time, but a devotee who knows that the time factor is another representation or manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to fear from the influence of time. So we can see, for example, now, the cat, I don't know if you all have seen, the cat, when it's eating the mice, it will hold the mouse in the mouth. And the mouse is now very scared. Oh my God, I'm going to die now. And he's very fearful. Now the same cat, how does she hold her babies, her kittens in her mouth? And her babies are not scared. They know she's my mother. She loves me the most. She cares for me. So they are sitting happily in her mouth. And the difference, the mouse is afraid of her. They both are in the mouth. Mouse is afraid. The kittens, they are carefree, my mother. Similarly, us, if we surrender to God, we will become fearless, abhayam, no fear. We just have to surrender to God. The more we surrender to God, the more fearless we become, because then we can understand everything and everyone belongs to God. Everything is happening by the arrangement of God. There's nothing that is happening without the knowledge of God. And that God is my best well-wisher. Krishna is my best well-wisher. So the more we surrender to Krishna, the more fearless we become. That's the devotee. That's why devotee is called Abhay. Abhay Charana, fearless at the lotus feet of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada's name was Abhay Charanaravindam. His parents had given him that name, fearless at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So the phrase Rupa Bhedaspadam is very significant. By the influence of time, so many forms are changing. For example, when a child is born, his form is small, but in the course of time, that form changes into a larger form. The body of a boy, then the body of a young man. Everything's happening with the passage of time. Our young bodies are becoming old bodies now. Our young, beautiful hair now, it's becoming white hair. There's wrinkles under the eyes, cannot see without the glasses. But the form is changing. All by influence of time, deteriorating influence of time. So similarly, everything is changed and transformed by the time factor or by the indirect control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So why is this? Why is supposed to be like that? Everything has to deteriorate in the material world. As the age goes on, the hair becomes white, the body becomes old. Why? Whose law is this? We all accept the laws. That what to do, this is life, what to do, we have to accept. But the intelligence thing is, but who's doing it? Why I have to accept it? How come? Who's the one who's making these laws? Then we'll come to understand, oh, it's God's laws. All these laws of material nature are made by God. That is the sign of intelligence. Usually we do not see any difference between the body of a child and the body of a boy or a young man. because we know that these changes are due to the action of the time factor. There is cause for fear for a person who does not know how time acts. Many people are fearful. We are fearful. Oh, after I leave this body, why are so many people afraid of death? Why are we all afraid of death? We are afraid of death because we don't know where we are going to be going in the next life. Which body are we going to be pushed into? What's there out there? We don't know. But we know we will be dragged out of this body at one time. So before that time happens, then it's our intelligence, if we can surrender to God, so that we don't need to take another birth in the material world. We can go back home, back to Godhead. Revive our relationship with God. That is the goal of human life. Revive our love of God. Yo anta pravishya bhutani bhuter ati akhila shrayah sa Vishnu akyo adi yagyo sao kala kalayatam prabhu. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, is the time factor and the master of all masters. He enters everyone's heart. He's the support of everyone. And he causes every being to be annihilated by another. We go to school, colleges, nowhere are we given such clear information as to who we are and how this material world is working. The scientists just give us some discovery of some law. They name the laws, but why and how everything is happening, nobody knows. But the scriptures are giving us very clearly. And there is no school or institution which is teaching us this knowledge of the scriptures so that our confusion can be gone. So it's so important to hear from the scriptures. They're saying, who's God? Lord Vishnu is God. Lord Krishna, he's God. Srimad Bhagavatam, right from the first verse, first canto, first chapter, Srila Vyasadeva tells us the name of God. He says Krishna is God. And from him, everything is coming. The material world is coming from him. The spiritual world is coming from him. He's the one who's maintaining the material world. He's the one who's maintaining the spiritual world. He's the one from whom the Brahman effulgence is coming. He's the one who's expanding as the Paramatma. He's the one who's speaking the Vedas to Lord Brahma in his heart. All the knowledge is given right in the first verse. So then, Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is clearly described in this passage. He is the supreme enjoyer, and all others are working as his servants. So when this big picture comes in our mind, oh, God is the enjoyer and everyone are working as his servants. So does it mean God is a dictator? In history, we have heard of so many dictators. They were being atrocious. They were manipulating others, keeping people as slaves, inflicting atrocities on others. So we also think like that. Oh, is God like that? He's going to whip me? Am I God's slave? No, God is all loving. He's our Supreme Father. We have a loving relationship with him. Then we say, oh, but what does this servant mean? So how do we express love? How do we express love to our family, our spouse, our parents, our children, our brothers or sisters? We do things for them. We are serving them. So we are servants of them. So similarly, we have a loving relationship with God. And we need to be situated in that relationship, as stated in the Caitanya Caritamrta Adi-Lila, chapter 5, text 14. Ekale Ishvara Krishna, the only Supreme Lord is Vishnu, Arasabha Bhritya, all others are his servants. Lord Chaitanya, immediately in the beginning itself, he says, only Krishna is God, everyone else is his servants. Krishna tells Arjuna, after giving Arjuna the full knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, in the final chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, okay, you surrender to me now. Now I give you so much knowledge. Now you surrender to me. So in the conclusion of the Gita, Krishna gives this knowledge to Arjuna. That's the same Krishna. He came 500 years ago as Lord Caitanya in the form of a devotee to show us how to surrender to Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya begins his instructions. He begins his instructions by telling, everyone is a servant of Krishna. Only Krishna is the supreme master. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Bhritya. Now, because we don't want to accept it, that is material life. Till the time we don't accept it, we will continue to live in the material world. The choice is ours. Krishna does not force us to accept this knowledge. Krishna does not force us to act in this relationship. The choice is ours. If we don't accept it, we are in the material world. The minute we accept it, we are in the spiritual world. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other demigods are all servants. Lord Shiva says, I'm a servant of Krishna. Lord Brahma, he says, I'm a servant of Krishna. Lord Shiva, when he got defeated by the Mohini Murti, he was so happy. He said, I'm so great. I am fortunate to be your servant. Only you can be my master, and I am your servant. And that's what Lord Shiva tells to Mohini Murti. He tells to Lord Vishnu that time, that you have won me. I am your servant. The same Vishnu enters everyone's heart as Paramatma. So who's the Paramatma in our heart? Your heart, my heart. He's Lord Vishnu. He's sitting in our hearts. And he causes the annihilation of every being through another being. That is the law. When we say laws of material nature, but who's the lawmaker? These are the laws of God. It's God's laws. So we simply have to understand more about God. We need to hear about God, chant his holy names, hear more and more, and under the direction of the spiritual master, and go back home, back to Godhead. Is that okay?
Yes.
Did you have any comment or question? Anything to add?
Oh, it explained very well. So no question. It's okay.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Thank you so much for listening and joining in today morning. Hare Krishna.